Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Brian's Horror Corner, and welcome to this horror movie review as part of my June horror series, where I take a look at the entire Psycho franchise. Today, we're going to take a look at a movie that's not necessarily a Psycho movie, but it's kind of in the Psycho universe, if you will. And that is the Bates Motel here, not the recent TV show or TV series, but the 1987 made-for-TV movie Bates Motel here with Bud Cort and Lori Petty that I have on this four movie midnight marathon pack of psychos. But of course, now I have these three all on collector's edition Blu-ray, Scream Factory. So this is the only movie that I had yet to check out on here. So let's just go ahead and get into it. I'll give you my thoughts after give you the setup, the premise, and the cast, and then I'll let you know what I thought about it. So Bates Motel is a 1987 American made-for-television supernatural horror film and a spin-off of the Psycho franchise, written and directed by Richard Rothstein. Um, outside of the 1998 remake, it's the only installment not to feature Anthony Perkins as Norman Bates, as Kurt Paul portrays the character. The film premiered as part of NBC's Monday Night at the Movies on July 5th, 1987. It continues after the events of the original Psycho, ignoring the other sequels. The film is about Alex West, a mentally disturbed youth who ends up admitted to an asylum after killing his abusive stepfather. There, he befriends Norman Bates and ends up inheriting the Bates Motel upon Norman's death. It was originally produced as a pilot for a proposed TV series set in the Bates Motel, but it was not picked up by the network. That's a key point there that I didn't know until after I watched this movie. So that's kind of the gist of it. So the movie opens, as it says, as I said before, as it said in the description, it ignores the existence of Psycho 2 and 3, and would in turn ignore Psycho 4, which actually was made after this movie, with Norman Bates having never been released from the mental institution as he was in those sequels, um, to allow those events of those films. Alex West is a mentally disturbed youth who was admitted to an asylum nearly 20 years ago for killing his abusive stepfather. He became close friends with Norman Bates at the asylum. Years later, Norman dies, and Alex learns that he has inherited the Bates Motel. He travels to Norman's California hometown, renamed Fairville for this film. In the original film, it was Fairvale, and with a little help from a teenage runaway Willie and local handyman Henry Watson, Alex struggles to reopen the motel for business. Alex gets a loan to renovate the motel, but the project is plagued with rumors about the place being haunted by the ghost of Norman's mother, Mrs. Bates, and the discovery of her remains, as well as as well of those as well as those of her late husband, buried on the grounds of the motel. While renovating the motel, Alex sees Mrs. Bates in her bedroom window and sees the corpse of her late husband from the same window, supporting the idea that the property is haunted. So that's the setup and the premise of this movie, Bates Motel. Cast wise, we have Bud Cort as Alex West, Lori Petty as Willie, Moses Gunn as Henry Watson, Greg Henry as Tom Fuller, Christine Haji as Sally, Jason Bateman as Tony Scotti, and Carrie Kean as Barbara Peters. So yeah, that's the Bates Motel, the made-for-TV movie from 1987. My thoughts on this: I remember seeing parts of it, like it might have even been when it came out in '87. I do remember kind of watching it. If it wasn't when it originally aired, it was a few years after that. I was very young, I know. Um, and I remember watching it the first time. I didn't like it because it didn't have Anthony Perkins as Norman Bates in it. So it isn't a psycho movie, obviously, as I said from the description there and stuff. You kind of have to remember that it's kind of outside of the psycho franchise. It's really not about Norman Bates, other than the fact that it's more about the Bates Motel and the house, the Psycho house here, than it is about anything having to do with the Psycho series. In fact, in terms of Norman Bates, is not the main character here, but he is involved, a different actor playing him because they have to get this other guy who was in the asylum to inherit this, so that he can basically turn it into this, reopen it, renovate it, and open it for business again. Now, Um, I don't know if I. So when I first watched this movie, I was ready to tear it a new one, basically, and I still am to a certain extent. But I didn't realize that it was a movie like a pilot for a proposed TV series set in the Bates Motel. Knowing that it softens the blow a little bit as far as my ripping this movie a new one. At first, I thought it was just sort of a different movie within the Psycho universe that they decided to go with and try something different. And if that was the case, boy, they didn't not only did not stick the landing, they weren't even in the same atmosphere with the landing. But I could kind of see where they were going once I did some research and realized it was a proposed TV series having to do with the Bates Motel. That being said, it still has a lot of problems, but also a few things that I enjoyed about it. So let's just go ahead and get into my review for Bates Motel from 1987. So starting with the pros, it does hold the continuity pretty well as it relates to the setting of the motel and the Psycho house. It still looks very much the same, the inside of the Psycho house as well as the motel, the rooms that we see and everything from the other films. It was good to see the same rooms, etc., and an alternate sort of idea and take on the same location. So I definitely like that part that they didn't change it all. I actually thought it was an interesting idea for an anthology series using guests that come through and stay at the motel for different episodes or individual stories as like an anthology series. And of course, I'm a big fan of anthology series. So once upon learning that, I think, as I said, it softened my blow of this movie overall. Because I really enjoy like horror anthology series and movies. And quite frankly, the best part of this movie is related to the first story, if you will, that we get in the last third of this movie, having to do with this suicidal woman that checks into the motel, and then she's visited by a bunch of young teenagers who are basically look like they're dressed for a 50s dance. That's about as much as I want to give away, but that part of the movie was actually the most compelling and the most well done of this entire movie. So I did enjoy that, and I could kind of see where they were going with that idea of the anthology, making it a series. Um, I thought for a made for TV, a made for network TV, in fact, not just made for TV, but network TV, I thought it was a pretty well, decently shot, not pretty well, pretty decent. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Pretty decently shot movie with having a minimal budget. It's not the worst made for TV movie I've ever seen. Obviously, it's not on the same level as the Psycho movies. Again, it's not a Psycho movie. They're just using the premise from the original. And they don't even do that well. I'll get into that, but they're basically using the location and take a different story with it. I thought it was pretty cool to see a young Jason Bateman in this kind of role, and I thought he did a good job with his character as well as Carrie Kean and Christine Haji. I thought they were all good in their roles. Like I said, best part of the movie, and it doesn't hurt either that Carrie Kean and Christine Haji were pretty easy on the eyes in this movie. It has to be said. So yeah, those are my pros for Bates Motel from 1987. Getting into the cons or the things that didn't work. The main cast of the movie with Bud Cort and Lori Petty weren't very strong in my opinion. I found the characters more annoying and uninteresting. I kind of wanted to just hit them in the face throughout the movie, especially Lori Petty. She always seems to play the same kind of, how do I describe it? She's just like this sort of supposed to be rough and tumble, like nobody's going to tell me what to do, and I can make it on my own kind of character. But she ends up whining most of the time, and I don't know. At least the stuff that I've seen her in. Obviously, most notably, A League of Their Own, and then this movie. But there's some other things too. I didn't really enjoy her character in this movie. Bud Cort either. His character was just so the ultimate cuck, basically. He had no backbone whatsoever. I just didn't enjoy their performances. The movie's kind of all over the place with pacing in terms of the ideas that were initially presented and what we ended up winding up with. It almost felt like three movies in one because you have the first act, which is um, which is in black and white, which I'll actually say that was kind of cool how they had it in black and white, like the first part of the movie, which was supposed to, excuse me, let me try to talk again here, which was supposed to take place when Bud Cort's character of Alex West was a kid and was initially being put into this asylum. So Norman had been there for I don't know how many years it would be at this time. I'm not. They have issues with the continuity as it relates even to the first movie. But my point is, they made the first 20 minutes or so of the movie black and white, which I thought was effective to try to keep in that same vein of the original Psycho movie and sort of when the main character Alex West was a kid, so you know it was long before present day. It was like in the '60s or something. Um, so I thought that was interesting. But yeah, so you get that part of the movie where then he goes to Norman's funeral and he ends up being told about this Bates Motel that he's inherited, and we get his journey heading out to California, and a lot of that just kind of dragged on. He's trying to talk to townspeople, and most of them tell him they don't know, they never heard of the Bates Motel, which basically they just don't want to have anything to do with it. And then you get the middle part of the movie, which is him meeting these other characters, Laurie Petty's character of Willie and Moses Gunn's character is Henry Watson in the bank. The lender is Tom Fuller. Again, that really didn't do much. This idea that they run into these skulls that are buried on the property as they're trying to renovate the motel. And that was just very cheesy and didn't, there were no scares involved whatsoever. And then you get the third act of this movie, which is they're open for business. And then you get the best part of the movie, which is sort of the anthology story that they were trying to launch with this movie as a series, but it's just kind of all over the place. It really doesn't work at all as a movie, an overall movie, even as a TV movie. There are some pretty significant continuity issues as it relates to Norman Bates in the original Psycho movie. If you want to ignore the sequels to make your own movie, that's fine. But then if you're going to have it be a takeoff of the original Psycho movie, can you at least get the continuity right? The fact is, the corpse of his mother was found. She ended up in the fruit cellar of the basement. If anybody remembers the original movie, but in this movie they try to explain to her that her body was never found, and we end up finding it when they're digging to renovate the motel here on the grounds of the motel. I mean, what the fuck? It's just those are some pretty big continuity problems for me, and there's other things too. They don't really do a good job of sticking the continuity landing when it comes to the original Psycho movie. Um, but yeah, same with the way that his dad dies and his corpse is on the property, and we know that's not true. So very lousy job there. Um, the whole ending with the banker slash lender trying to scare Alex away was ridiculous and disappointing. I actually wish there would have been more of a supernatural element. And that's all I'm going to say about that because I don't want to give it away. But basically, we're meant to think that Norma Bates, as Norman's mother's ghost, is still haunting the property, and yeah, that's what we're left to think. And let's just say you'll be disappointed when you find out the truth. So yeah, I don't really have too much else to say about it. Again, it's a made for TV movie trying to launch a new anthology series known as Bates Motel, which on the surface sounds like a pretty good idea, but I can understand why the network didn't pick it up. You didn't have strong leading characters that, I mean, I'm assuming they would have been in every week's show, in Bud Cort and Lori Petty, and also Moses Gunn. Moses Gunn was probably the best of the three of them, and he really didn't have that much to do. The other two characters were not strong at all, though, and that's basically the idea of launching this into their series. I think fell on the weight of that. Um, yeah, and it's just like I said, it was a movie all over the place. The last half hour, 40 minutes, I enjoyed, and I thought the acting was better by the guest stars there, and that's in the anthology story part of it than by the main characters. So I almost wish it would have been reversed, that they would have been our main characters every week. But it is what it is. I can understand why I didn't go. Bates Motel from 1987, made for TV movie on NBC. I'm going to give it, and I'm probably being generous here, but I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10. I think I think it'd be lower than that if I didn't find out that they were making it to try to launch an anthology series. They get an extra point for that because I can kind of see where they were going with it, and it was kind of an interesting idea, and it would have been interesting to see how that would have played out by having customers come through each week and having a different story and everything as it relates to the Psycho House and Bates Motel. But I can also, like I said, I can also see why it didn't go anywhere because this movie didn't exactly stick the landing for it. So I'm gonna give it a. I'm gonna be generous. Give it a 6 out of 10. It's worth checking out, but I don't think I'm gonna end up keeping this because, like I said, I already have these other three movies on Blu-ray, and I'm not. This isn't. It isn't a good enough movie to keep this whole set here just for this. Not to mention the fact I'm pretty sure if I really want to watch it again, I can probably find it on YouTube somewhere. So yeah, check it out if you guys want. If it's, but I would look for it on YouTube. I wouldn't go out and try to buy it. Bates Motel from 1987. 6 out of 10. Go ahead and comment down below if you guys have seen this movie, what you thought of it, pros and cons as you see. And please like this video and hit the little notification bell down below so you don't miss my last video for this series of June. And make sure to subscribe to my channel down below as well so you don't miss any of my great horror content, including some exciting things I have coming up in July, right away at the beginning of the month, too. So stay tuned for those. But thank you for watching this review. I hope you enjoyed it. Have a great day. Stay scared. Bye.